Okay, class and everybody watching or listening, welcome back. We had a little time off and we are back with another visitor, another friend of the class, Joe Wagner. And he is the owner and operator of WDWMousing.com, which is an amazing resource of, in my opinion, a very historical approach to the parks, the Walt Disney World parks, and getting into the backstory of a lot of what goes on in the park, some of the stories of things that were attractions in the parks, and kind of some of those untold stories, how those attractions came to be. And so it's very, very interesting, and I've wanted to talk to Joe for a while about it. And so first, I want to welcome Joe to the class and the podcast. Thank you. And
Thank you.
if you could give us your background as to how you became a fan of Disney, how were you introduced, how did you become a fan, and then walk us up to today and your fandom, and then we'll talk about WDW Mousing.
Oh, it's very simple. Um, Probably over 25 years ago, my wife and I went down on vacation, and we were just blown away by the the service. They let's just say that Disney knew how to take care of their customers. We went there. It was 11 days that we stayed at the Swan Hotel the first time, and we enjoyed it. We were all over the place. My son came along also. He had a friend with him, and we it was perfectly safe. He was probably at that about 13 years old at that time, and we let him and his friend just go
Mhm.
at nighttime. We set a place where we were going to eat, and we would all meet there. Um, and they had a great time. We had a great time. It was a relaxing vacation. Um, and when we came home, we said, all right, why don't we go again next year? And we've been going for the last 25 years, about 3, 4 times a
Okay.
year. And we enjoyed it. We really do. It's a lot of people have asked me, why do you go to Disney? Don't you want to go other places? Well, we do go other places. We've gone on cruises, we've been to Europe, we've been to other places too, but we always gravitate back to Disney because we find it relaxing. We
Mhm.
actually find it relaxing. We don't go when the crowds go there. We don't go in the summertime. It's also hot down in Florida, so we try to avoid that. We go January, sometimes in May, mostly in September, at the Wine and Food Festival. Um, and we enjoyed. We just walk around and we enjoy going there. We
Yeah.
do relax.
Okay. So what is a on one of your more relaxing visits? Kind of what's a typical day or typical schedule that y'all follow when you're down there?
All right. The first day that we're there, we always go to the Magic Kingdom.
Okay.
And as we get into the Magic Kingdom at Town Square, over to your left is the what you call the exhibition hall. It used to be called the exhibition hall. I forget what it's called now, but that's where Mickey and Minnie have meet and greet
Hmm.
in there. And on the veranda, they have rocking chairs.
Hmm.
Now we'll come in and we'll sit at the rocking chairs with a cup of coffee or a cappuccino or whatever we can get, and we'll sit there for maybe an hour to 2 hours watching people come in. We just
Okay.
enjoy that. It's kind of relaxing to watching people come in. Um, and we've done that for the last 25 years. In
Okay.
fact, there's a picture in one of my chapters on Magic Kingdom about the veranda. So and then we may decide to either stay in that park or go somewhere else.
Yeah.
We're annual pass holders, so we can we were able to go anywhere we wanted to at any time that we did. And we usually either walked around, went into any attractions that we felt like, took pictures as usual, um, or left and went to another park.
Yeah. Okay. And so a lot of times that you go, you said, especially now, you go, um, and one thing you do is you take a lot of pictures. And this will lead us into WDW Mousing, but um, what kinds of things are you looking for when you take pictures? Are you looking for, do you focus on the small details? Do you focus on the bigger picture? Is it a little bit of everything that you're looking for when you're there?
Um, what I'm looking for is the storylines
Okay.
of each one of the attractions, and I'm looking at how they connected, and taking pictures of the small details. I'm going to take the larger pictures of, as you've seen if you've gone through my my stories, the chapters. You've seen that I've taken the large pictures, but I've also gotten down to the details as to, okay, why, you know, little signs that are at some of the attractions that people just don't see on
Yeah.
a regular basis. And then they wonder, well, why was that there? And I try to then explain why certain things are where they are.
Okay.
Um,
And because there's so many, like, one of the things I like doing is I like going and looking at the small details, and I like telling people that I'm with kind of these small trivia points. Some of them are kind of the, maybe the easier that a lot of people know, the pavement being a different color and down the middle of Liberty Square. But then there are some of the smaller details that I've picked up along the way, or people have told me about. And one of them is a a plaque with a quote from Randy Pausch that I've yet to find in Fantasyland. And I believe it is by the carousel. It's somewhere in front of the carousel. And so those Randy Pausch being he was he's the author of the book The Last Lecture. It's a
Mhm.
very inspiring story for anybody who wants to go and read or listen about that. So I really like seeing those little details. Um, what are some of the more interesting details you have come across in your time there?
Well, when you go into Magic Kingdom, just before you go under the railroad and go in, there's a plaque up on top,
Mhm.
where it basically states that beyond this, it's a place of imagination. It's today and tomorrow, and and what you call it kind of sets up the tone of what you're going to see in there. Now, a lot of people don't see that sign because they're rushing to get into the park. But that sign, I wish I had it in front of me, but I think you know which sign I'm
Mhm.
talking about. um, I find that sign interesting. Um, in most of the parks, there are lots of signs like that are all over the
Yeah.
place. That you have to, you have to look for them, but they are there.
Yeah.
Like on the runaway train, not the runaway train, the what you call it, Thunder Mountain.
Yeah.
When you now, I like I said before, is I like to get on the standby lanes because you get to walk through and you get time to see what's there. And the Imagineers have taken their time and effort to put a lot of detail into keeping you entertained if you want to be entertained by looking around and reading what's in there. There's so much, like in the Thunder Mountain train, the standby, that uh, that tells a story about the train itself and about how it was done, who started it. And by the way, if you're looking for Rosita, she's there also. Well, she was there.
Yeah.
Since you have what you call it, the what you call it, the
The enchanted
enchanted
tiki,
tiki
yeah.
house behind you, I was thinking of Rosita. Where's
Yeah.
Rosita? Well, she was over at the
Yeah.
Thunder Mountain. But there's so much details there, like, okay, you got to take off your shoes before you leave this place because they want to make sure that gold that
Yeah.
doesn't leave the place. They have the gold register as to which mountain or which tunnel is making the most. There's a lot of interesting background and back detail behind that. Forget about the ride. I mean, I sometimes go on the lines just to get the details and don't even go on the rides. I do that at Space Mountain. I mean, I do like the ride, but there's so much detail as you
Yeah.
walk in Space Mountain that a lot of people, I like going on a standby lane because you take your time as you're going through and you get a chance to see everything that's there.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. The next thing is WDWMousing.com. As I said in my introduction, I see it as this great wealth of historical information on the parks and on the different attractions and the different lands within the parks. Can you talk to us about WDW Mousing as far as what got you started, wanting to write about it, actually starting to write about it, and then kind of walk us through like what your plans are for the current and future of the site. And it's something that's available to everybody, I should say,
Okay.
as well.
Well, I started WDW about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
And basically I was looking for something to keep me occupied. And since I like photography and I take a lot of pictures and I like Disney, it was just a natural match. I've been to Disney, as I said before,
Unknown caller.
3 times. Hold on a second. Sorry, I turned
No
off the
worries.
phone.
No worries.
I've been to Disney so many times, and when we came back, I said, all right, maybe I should write. I enjoy writing, and we know a lot about Disney, and we've experienced a lot of things there. We've taken all of the attractions, we've done all the tours, and I said, and as I said before, we sit on the veranda and watch people come into the parks.
Mm-hmm.
And how many people race through the
Yeah.
parks, and you can see them opening up the maps and saying, well, I got to go to this ride, I got to go to that ride, I got to go here. And you wonder how much they actually saw of Disney. And then when they go home, they say, okay, I spent all this money, but what did I see? And I want to give an opportunity for those who are interested in Disney and learn a little more about what they saw or what they didn't see,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to read about it and try to explain, okay, why does it exist? Why is a ride there? Why is that attraction popular and why isn't it popular? There are some attractions at the Magic Kingdom that I don't understand why they're so popular. But you find out why they're popular when you finally take most people used to take the Fast Pass and now take the Genie Plus,
Yeah.
and go run through and miss 90% of what the ride was supposed to be about, or what the attraction was supposed to be about. Probably one of the best examples is, and I use Magic Kingdom mainly because it's probably the best one for giving the examples as you walk through the park, And I always tell people to make sure you turn around every once in a while. Look above, look down, turn left, turn around, and then turn around and see what else you can
Mm-hmm.
see. But as you go through Main Street and you head over to Adventureland, when you turn around as you hit the bridge that goes to Adventureland, you can't see Main Street anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's specifically designed so that you're going through the changes, but you don't realize it until you've actually gone through the
Yeah.
change and you turn around and you look, okay, wait a minute. The Main Street is gone. And I've got Adventureland in front of me. And now you're absorbed into that
Yeah.
area. And I find that with a lot of areas, most of the areas that it is exactly the same way. Same thing as in Animal Kingdom. When you walk over the bridge to go to Dino Land, all of a sudden you've gone from Discovery Island, which looks like Disney, it looks like what we call it Dino Land, but you get over the bridge and all of a sudden it's different.
Yeah.
And you look back and you see, okay, you can't tell where you cut off or where it's changed. But you've gone over into Dino Land and it's totally different than Dino Land as it was over in Discovery Island.
Yeah.
So I've so what I've done is I've written WDW with the intention of giving opportunity to people who have either want to know more about Disney or those who have gone to Disney and said, okay, well, wait a minute, why is this there? Or I missed something, didn't I? And it gives them an opportunity kind of when they read my chapters is to get a little more background, a little more understanding as to why Disney did certain things.
Yeah.
Or why the Imagineers had put in certain things and done certain things.
Yeah. And I'll link wdwmousing.com in the show notes for people that are watching or listening. And then also for the students in the class, I have a running list on the syllabus of different resources. And so we'll add this and talk about this one in the class as well. For those who like having that kind of background, and like you said, the stories of the details, why are some details there? And so far, what I can see on the site is you've gone through Hollywood Studios, you've gone through Magic Kingdom.
Well,
You
I'm
are
not
going,
finished. I'm finished with Magic Kingdom,
but not
except
Hollywood Studios, right?
but Hollywood Studios, I'm still working on.
Okay.
In fact, I've stopped at the Echo Lake,
Mhm.
and I've got chapters ready for Muppets
Okay.
for the Muppet area, and it had changed so many times over the years as to what it was called and what it belonged to. Now it's called Grant Avenue or Grant Street.
Mhm.
But I plan to do that and get that out. Right now, I've been putting up chapters on Dino Land, or
Mhm.
basically of the Magic Animal Kingdom. And the reason why I've gone to Animal Kingdom is because I haven't gone for 2 years because of the pandemic.
Mhm.
Now that I have gone back, I've also noticed that I've got to do a number of updates and go backwards and
Yeah.
update some of the chapters that I've started on the Magic Kingdom, and you'll see that coming up soon. Or you may not see it, and they're so subtle,
Yeah.
some of the changes. But I've decided to go with Animal Kingdom and continue with that because that has seen the least amount of changes.
Mhm.
So I've written and I'm finished with Asia and heading over to Africa, which is a couple of chapters away from before it gets on the website. But I've just recently been there and I spent a lot of time in Asia and Africa, as well as Pandora. and taking a lot of pictures, and also trying to make a measure of, okay, I'm going to start writing, and particularly in Pandora, what do I have to change? And there's really not a lot that I have to change there either. So
Yeah.
I could finish off Animal Kingdom and basically without too many updates or changes. And hopefully some of the restaurants that are supposed to be open, or stores that are supposed to be open, will be open by the time I get these chapters out.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you've noticed, I've also put in a note about Epcot,
Yeah.
that I'm not doing Epcot right now, mainly because they've made so many changes and then made changes to the changes that I'm waiting until they finally decide what they're going to do at the front of the park, what they're going to do with the rest of the park. I'm not sure if Mary Poppins is going to go to England
Yeah.
or not. Ratatouille finally got done, which was an excellent ride. I do recommend that people try to go on that. But a lot of the, like I said earlier, when we talked earlier, is there's still a lot of things missing, and also people that are missing. They're bringing back the college program,
Yeah.
so that they'll start bringing some of the natives who are like in Germany. When I was there, we went to Germany, and I was used to having people speak German there, and I found that there was nobody there that spoke German. And in a few other restaurants like England, they were local servers who are not English.
Yeah.
And I was used to having English speaking, well, they were English speaking anyway, but but people who are familiar with Great Britain
Yeah.
and can give you background as to what their culture is and what their likes and dislikes are.
Yeah. And for people who don't know, that cultural exchange program is coming back. Cultural representative program
Yeah.
is coming back. And it's also, I mean, Epcot is like, I don't know how many chapters they're going to do on Epcot, but it could easily be 50 or 60 by itself, with all of the, like, what was the original intent of Epcot? And a lot of people know the backstory, or I guess the stories of planning Epcot, and
Mhm.
what Walt Disney, the man, his images were of Epcot and what Epcot has become. And then that was just at the opening, and then the changes that have been made since then. And I still, one thing that I still see Epcot as, I see it as, and they have done away with the term, or the acronym, experimental prototype community of tomorrow. I still see it as very experimental, in that um, it is very educational. You see, you you are seeing a lot of different things while you're there, but I also think it's experimental, because it really is the park where has experienced the most amount of change, I think, and will continue to experience the most amount of change. And I think that actually goes to, in my view, that goes to what the intent was, not the intent of it being a living, working city, but the intent that it is something that is changing, and helping people to experience new things, learn new things. And I know, people will talk about the IP in the park and the introduction of all the IP in Epcot. Well, frankly, IP has been an intellectual property, has been a Disney park since the beginning. That's why Disneyland was built, is for intellectual property reasons. But it that is such an interesting park, because with the exception of some of the things in World Showcase, and there's been a lot of changes in World Showcase, but with the exception of that, almost everything else has changed. You think of what was there on opening day of Epcot Center that has not either changed. Either the pavilion itself is different or no longer there, or kind of the scope of the experiences are different. The attractions are different, rethemings, things like that. So it is a very, very interesting park. I'm looking forward I'm looking forward for the park to get to a place where you can start writing about it, because you said it's going through so many changes right now, because I want to experience that. But then I'm looking forward to reading your research and your writing on it, because it is such a fascinating property.
There's a lot to write about Epcot,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
particularly when you start off at the very beginning, and you're right, there have been so many changes. I mean, it's like the horizon,
Mhm.
you know, the Wonderful Life
Yeah,
Pavilion. Well, now with Universe and Energy,
yeah. Universe of Energy now being,
I mean, it's just
yeah,
changed.
yeah.
Even the globe has changed.
Hmm.
You know, Spaceship Earth has changed. Um, with the original narrators that were in there, there have been 5 narrators already in that pavilion.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's so much going on. I mean, when I first went to to Disney, there was no soaring.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it was you went in there and you walked around and you kind of looked, okay, what's this place gonna be? There's only one ride in here. It was interesting, but it was not enough to attract everybody to come there. It was empty most of the time.
yeah.
Now it's pretty much,
Pretty full.
yeah.
And it's one of the most interesting. It's one of the most interesting pavilions. And living with the land is great, because of what you see. It's also great because it's a very long ride, and air conditioning, and out of the Florida heat most of the time. Um, the last time you were at Epcot, did you see the new Guardians of the Galaxy ride?
It had just opened up the last week we were there, and
Okay.
unfortunately we didn't get a pass or anything like that.
Okay.
So and I still had to board it, surrounded with the shrubbery, and are only
Okay.
allowing guests who had passes to go. I think the week before when we got there, the first week, they were the cast members that were allowed to go, and it
Okay.
wasn't until the third week we were there that they allowed annual pass holders to go, but we didn't get online to get
Yeah.
registered or anything.
Yeah.
So we missed that opportunity.
Because I'm interested to see, and I've heard stories about it, that they do have callbacks to original Epcot Center, or maybe not original. They have callbacks to late 80s, early 90s Epcot Center, in kind of the queue area, and I'm also interested to see what type of homage they pay to Universe of Energy in there, because typically they will pay some sort of homage to an attraction, sometimes where that attraction was, sometimes where it wasn't. One example I'm thinking of is a Magic Kingdom, at Winnie the Pooh. I think the deed to Toad Hall is still at the Winnie the Pooh ride.
Yes, it still
Um,
is.
and then actually so that's where that ride was. But then over at Haunted Mansion, when you're walking out of the building, and you walk past the graveyard, you see the headstone for Mr. Toad, which I think is really interesting. And then, so they always have these cool ways to pay like tribute to all of these things. And I just listened to a podcast about a brief discussion on a podcast about the different ways the Imagineers kind of honored, in Galaxy's Edge, what came before it. The backlot tour and lights, motor action, things like that. So I love hearing about all of that. One thing I want to talk about, and I didn't get through all of it, but with Echo Lake, in Hollywood studios, because you write a lot about Echo Lake and Hollywood studios.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is an area that when people walk by, it's on the way to something. It's on the way now to Galaxy's Edge, or you walk past it to get to what is now Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Maybe you walk past to get to Indiana Jones Adventure, which is Echo Lake. But it's such an interesting area, and it's such like there's a lot of history behind it. So can you talk to us specifically about Echo Lake and what you wrote about Echo Lake and some of the kind of the details in there?
Well, Echo Lake actually has a lot of history behind it, and there's a lot of reference to Walt Disney and to Roy. Like as you come into Echo Lake, the first building there is actually the Keystone building.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look up on the top, on the second floor there, you'll see signs up there. And those signs of reference, and if you don't know the history behind Disney, this kind of helps in understanding some of the history, where the second floor was supposed to be where Disney and Roy had their first studio.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually a sign up there that says, for rent. And that means that they had moved to the new location. That's what the reference is for. And it's also what you call it on the first floor. You'll see a door that says it's a real estate agent. And that was their neighbor on that second floor.
Okay.
I forget what the name is on the real estate agent. But as you walk further, well, also there's a lot about what you call the Rocketeer.
Yeah.
Which again, you've got to know Rocketeer in order to understand where it ties in with PV's soda fountain or stand there. And there's a lot of, if you look really carefully, you'll see the helmet, the jetpack, and the two signs that are in there. Behind it is the blueprint behind the sign, or I should say, their menu is written on the blueprint.
Yeah.
Now, if you're looking for a blueprint, it's actually white. Plus, there are magazines and newspaper clippings on the other side, where if you read that, it talks about the Rocketeer. Now, there's a lot of other things. If you were there when the backlot tour still existed, there were a lot of Rocketeer leftovers
Mm-hmm.
that were in the backlot tour. I mean, the backlot tour. When I finally get to that, it's going to take me a while to write that, because there's a lot to write about the backlot tour, even though it's gone, which it's kind of hurt me really deeply, because I enjoyed the backlot tour. I enjoyed riding through it. And a lot of people said, well, why are we riding, seeing all this junk here and stuff like that? But everything that they had there is related to something that happened, either a movie or some attraction that they had. There's just so much information, including Disney's plane that they used to find Florida. I enjoyed Catastrophe Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun. I don't know if you've gone to that.
Yeah, the first times we went on the backlot, and my experience with the backlot tour was because I was younger. It was much like my first times going to any historical location. You don't fully appreciate it, I appreciate it much more now if I watch videos on it. And so my experience was, this is a 2-hour tour to go through Catastrophe Canyon, and Catastrophe Canyon was like this really cool, like experience of being in a movie and movie sets and everything. And then it was, being the age I was when I went, some of the things were cool. I liked seeing, things from the Rocketeer and different things like that, but I didn't fully appreciate everything that was there. And then obviously, it is long gone now, having been actually replaced 2 times, or I should say with 2 separate attractions. So, but yeah, I wanted to comment on that because that was my experience as well. Is I wish I would have appreciated it a little bit more, because of the age I was when I went. That kind of kept me from doing that. But please carry on with.
I mean, I agree with you because I wish I appreciated it a lot more when I started going there and had taken more pictures and notes
Mhm.
than, and it's only been in the last 5 years that I've actually taken a lot more attention to that.
Yeah.
And most of the stuff I've had to search online to get the information. But getting back to Echo Lake, as you walk around Echo Lake, you hit the, what you call it, the trading post.
Mhm.
I don't know if you know the story behind the trading post. If you see one side, it's Southern California. When you see the other side of it, it's actually a fort.
Okay.
Okay, because when you go back further back to where the exit is from the um,
Indiana Jones.
Indiana
Yeah.
Jones, right? Indiana Jones, there's the trucks that are there, the World War II trucks. Now, the Imagineers, and I'm not sure if Spielberg still remembers this, but the Imagineers borrowed those trucks from Spielberg.
Okay.
And they made sort of a reality. It's kind of like a continuation of what I said about the Magic Kingdom. When you go to the Magic Kingdom and you walk to Adventureland, you look back and
Yeah.
it's gone, Main Street. Well, as you come out of the Indiana Jones show, you actually walk, if you're walking on that side, leave that side, you actually walk through some of the history behind that, because those are the trucks that they used in the first Indiana Jones movie. And as you walk towards the building where the trading post is, it sort of matches with that. It hasn't changed. It looks like a part of the fort until you get around into the store itself. But if
Yeah.
you go into the store itself, there's a lot of things in there that you have to look very carefully that really are towards Indiana Jones, like the maps, the flags that are in there. They're fictitious flags, but they're flags that are supposedly somewhere in Asia. They're supposed to be, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're fictitious flags or Imagineer flags.
Yeah.
Then as you go around, it changes even after you go to Indiana Jones. And what I call the theater district is when you get on the other side of the lake there, you see all the theaters that are there. There's the Frozen Theater, and next to it is the Mickey Shorts
Mhm.
Theater. And they put that there basically to kind of, okay, get you back to reality and bring you back again to, okay, this is what else Disney does.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you turn around and look at the lake, you basically, with the shrubbery and the bushes there, it really masks a lot of the things that are on the other side of the lake. So if you look up in the sky, it's I think it's west, you see the in the left.
Sorry, could you repeat it froze up a little bit. Could you
Okay,
repeat that
well,
last 10 seconds maybe?
sure. As you look over the lake and you look off in the distance, you actually see the Haunted Mansion. I mean, not the Haunted Mansion, the Tower of Terror
Mhm.
in the background. But it sort of fits in with the structures, just like it
Yeah.
does over in Epcot.
Yep.
When you're looking over what's called Morocco,
Yeah.
you see it sort of matches in with Morocco.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite examples, is that the Hollywood Tower, the way that it looks in Hollywood Studio, but being so close, the park being so close to Epcot, you actually do see it from Epcot. And typically you see it over your sight line. Is going, the best view of it will be past Morocco, so it looks like Morocco. It's something, it looks like the Moroccan architecture off in the distance, which is really, really cool. One thing that I wanted to ask, and it may be a difficult one, but are there some of the favorite stories you have, or most interesting stories you have from writing about the parks so far?
That's tough to answer. That really is tough, because I've tried to, I've tried to not to put emotions into the stuff that I've written, because I've tried to make it more of a historical type of going through the park and seeing things. I mean, I have kind of put in that I thought this was great, that was great. One of the things that I don't do is I don't rate restaurants, because there's plenty of websites that already do that to begin with. My intention is basically to give you a pictorial tour of Disney, of Disney World, so that you can see where why things are there, how they got there, and why they got there. Probably some of the interesting things that I've written about is is actually in Hollywood Studios on Hollywood Boulevard. Going down and up and down the street there, and did the background on the facades. I don't know if you've read that chapter yet. But the facades, each one of them is somewhere in California, and particularly in LA, where they're all taken from, like the first facade you see as you come in is the camera store. That camera store actually exists in California, in LA, where it was a camera store. Now it's a I think it's a delicatessen or something like that. But as you go down the streets, that you can, I've given the background as to where each one of the stores or each one of the facades came from. And they're not all connected together in one location in LA, but they are all together, and they're supposed to represent what LA was like in the 30s and 40s. I love the music that's down that street. Same thing as Sunset Boulevard. I love the music there. You go down Sunset Boulevard, the the theater that's at the end, that's supposed to be the Hollywood Bowl. In fact, the street that goes around the side of it is the same street that you go to the Hollywood Bowl. So it's the store that was before that, the Cathay. It's not called theater. It's a Cathay center or circle. That used to be, the exterior, interior was a lot of Disney paraphernalia in the windows. Now it's basically merchandise that's in the store, but a lot of paraphernalia. And I go through explaining, okay, what that paraphernalia was and how it was related to Disney. Where he did his shows and showed his cartoons back in the Cathay Theater in Hollywood. And I mean, that's what that whole building is all about. And of course, the Haunted Mansion. Did you know that the Rock and Roller Coaster is related to the Haunted Mansion?
No, I didn't know. To Tower of Terror. They're related.
They're related because the reason why Rock and Roller Coaster, what happened there was obviously it was a Halloween night. So a Halloween party up on the Tip Top Club, and the executives of the building, the Rock and Roller Coaster was basically the record company. the executives from the record company were at the Hollywood, at the Hollywood,
Okay.
the Hollywood
Yeah, the
hotel.
Hollywood Tower. Yeah.
Yeah, they were there. And after the elevator disaster occurred, they closed down everything in that area. That's the backstory behind that.
Okay.
That's not where they closed it down, but the backstory is
Yeah.
where they closed that down. And it wasn't until um, Aerosmith got together with the executives at that time, um, recently, that it actually brought the record company back into
Okay.
existence.
Yeah, I didn't know
So
that. That's really
they,
cool.
it's there's a lot of interesting, a lot of stuff that's like that, that where they are connected. Like you said before, is there are connections,
Yeah.
even for things that have gone. There are signs or just background, something to remind you of, if you know where to look, to remind you of, okay, this was here actually.
Yeah.
This other attraction was here.
Yeah. And that's one of the really cool things about Disney parks in general is if you are someone who just wants to go and ride as much, then you obviously have your charge to do that. But if you want to go and you want the details, that you could see those as well. So I think it's a park built for many different, not just like groups of consumers, but it's built for different types of consumers as well. If you are someone who wants that kind of to see what's on the surface, there's a lot to see there. And if you want to see some things that are under the surface, there's a lot of stuff there for you
Mhm.
as well. So it's really, really cool. I wanted to ask about you you have been going for over 25 years, you said, or for the last 25 years. And you got back and you went in May of this year. And some of it is it may be a little bit difficult conversation because there was a pandemic, is a pandemic, and an extended park closure in that time. And so some of the things have been impacted and still aren't back. And there are other things that I'm not sure it's still pandemic related, but people can have that conversation. um, what are your impressions of the parks when you first started going to now, and where do you think they move into the future, or how they move into the future?
I'm trying to be non-political about this, but let's just say that from the very beginning, when we started going there, is uh, it was much more accommodating. It was much, how can I say it? No, I'll say it anyway. They didn't nickel and dime you all the way. Okay, you had more freedom, you had more flexibility, you didn't have restrictions like you have now. Um, in fact, when we first went there, they didn't even have fast passes.
Yeah.
So when they brought the fast passes, we weren't sure as to whether we were going to like it or not, but we adapted to it, and actually we did like it. In fact, I still have some fast passes
Yeah.
hanging on the wall
Yeah.
behind me, which I haven't used. I won't be able to use though. But I just, I'm just disappointed with the direction that I think it's going. I hope it they change, and we're not going to go another until next year in January. And the reason for that is because there's so many things that still has to get opened up and
Mhm.
still has to get into place to make it at least I'm looking for the right word, but anyway, it's kind of to make it at least acceptable
Yeah.
from my perspective.
Okay.
Like the dining situation, the stores, I mean, I know they're not going to bring in the fast passes because they've already said they're going to keep those things. I don't particularly care for the reservation system. I'll be honest about that, because you can make reservations for three days, but I can make meal reservations for two months.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how do I know I'm going to get into the park to use to go to the dining where I want to go? We typically end the day at Epcot always.
Okay.
And we like eating at the park. Now, what you said for earlier about the about annual pass holders, well, I think the annual pass holders are the ones that really support Disney,
Mm-hmm.
because they're the ones that'll eat in the parks and not at the fast food counters,
Yeah.
but they'll go to the restaurants. And that's why they became annual pass holders, because they like going to the restaurants in the park. Now, I've seen it change there also in the restaurants, where 25 years ago, let's just say that the food was acceptable. In the last 25 years, they've gotten some master chefs in there, some really good chefs that have really brought it up to where it belongs to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's if you're going to pay top money for eating at one of their restaurants, you want to make sure you're getting the best you can. You know, so I've seen that has actually gotten better. Has in the last, particularly last 5 to 10 years, it has gotten tremendously better. And I see that as continuing there, because they're keeping the master chefs. And the quality of food when we were there was still excellent. So I don't see that changing in any way. But as I said, you know, some of the nickel and diming, I'm not happy with, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately, I've seen that over the 25 years where it's gone. You know, everything has become now, okay, we can make some extra money on this, where someone who's going there, who's just going there the first time, will not see that, will not know that, are going to accept that what they're doing right now as, well, that's normal. I've got to get a fast or a Genie Plus or a Lightning Plus. And, you know, I'm glad that they're at least looking at it from that perspective. But those of us who have been annual pass holders for 25 years, kind of looking at this stuff and saying, that's not what you did. This isn't what Disney wanted. We don't know really for sure. I mean, but it's not what was there originally. You know, they used to have rest places for annual pass holders. They had one in Epcot, and on the second floor of the American.
Imagination. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
American. No, Imagination, that is for what you call a Disney Vacation
DVC,
Club owners. But they used to have up on the second floor, where they have now Club 33 in the American Experience.
Okay.
Used to be upstairs. You can go there as as an annual pass holder. They used to be at the Animal Kingdom. There used to be a spot where you got soda and everything else, and you could sit in the cool spot while you're at the park and kind of chill there. At the fireworks at the Epcot, they used to have a special place right next to where Italy was. The not not where everybody else stands or where they have the parties all the time, but on either side of it.
Okay.
They used to have that set aside just for annual pass holders. Those things have gone.
Yeah.
And we sort of felt important back then. Now we feel like, what can I say, second-class citizens sometimes. Where
Well, and do you think that the current, or the way that it is now, do you think it encourages people to go to the parks more often, or discourages people to return to the parks. So what I'm saying is maybe, maybe you have somebody who they're only going to be able to go one time in their life. And if it was 20 years ago, maybe they would go and they would say, you know what, we're going to save up money and we're going to go one more time, or we're going to try to go more. We're people who go every 2 or 3 years, probably something around there. Do you think that there's an encouragement to go more often now, or is actually kind of a disincentive to go multiple times in a year, or maybe instead of going every year, a person's going to go every other year?
There are two types of people. There are those like us who are annual pass holders who love Disney, but we're looking at, like I said, we're not going until next year. Normally we would have gone 3 times already, or go 3 times this year, but we're not going until next year because I'm hoping that they get back to some sort of normality. Someone who has not been there, well, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they'll go there and they'll absorb what they're doing.
Yeah.
They'll get dragged into, or I should say, shouldn't be dragged into, but they'll be looking at it as, okay, this is what normally is. So they're not going to go and question anything.
Yeah.
Unless they're with people like me who's going to question everything. But they'll go and they might come back again, or they may not come for another 10 years. Who knows? I mean, there's 2 types of people. Like I said, it's annual pass holders who go regardless of what.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, fortunately, I'm retired, so I can go anytime I want to. And I can go as long as I want to go down there. So,
Yeah.
but I spent less time in the parks this time than I would normally go.
Okay.
Even though I was there for 3 weeks, I didn't go to another park. God forbid I should do that. But as I tell my sister-in-law, no, that's the other park. That's the other park. But we'll decide probably in January next year as to how often we're going to go on a regular basis.
Okay.
It's getting over this hurdle first. First, we haven't gone in 2 years because of the COVID. I think they're still experiencing COVID down there, and they're still putting into place things that are COVID related.
Yeah.
Not that there is any COVID, not to the extent that it was earlier. So I'm going to wait until next year to kind of make that decision as to, okay, what are we going to do long term?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of annual pass holders are thinking the same way.
Okay.
It's like, okay, we've gone, we've seen, we'll go someplace else for a time being, and then we'll come back.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll be back. I mean, that's without a doubt. They'll be back because Disney is still a theme park. It's not an amusement park. It's a theme park.
Yeah.
And that's what you get absorbed into when you're there, is the theme of what Disney is all about.
Yeah. To shift focus a little bit, because before we started recording, and I had messaged you before, as you know, a lot of the students in the class, a lot of students are interested in Marvel, especially the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So the students actually do a paper, a project on what Marvel character they most identify with, or characters they most identify with, and why they identify with them, and what they could take from those characters to help them move forward in their life, college and outside of college and everything. And so I like asking the friends of the class that question. And so before we started recording, and I asked you, are you a fan of Marvel? you opened up like this treasure trove of Marvel fandom. So can you, with the little bit of time we have left, can you tell us what your Marvel fandom is, and your extensive collection of original Marvel comics?
Well, as I said before, is I was collecting Marvel from 61 to 62 when it first started with, let's just say, the Silver Age.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. And I've collected when I was young. At the end of the week, or actually it was monthly that I was put out at that time. At the end of the month, I took my dollar and I went to the grocery store or the soda shop, and I bought as many comics as I could buy at that time.
mm-hmm.
And the top three were always Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and the Avengers. Okay, but then I'd expand out to Doctor Strange, the Hulk, Captain America, all the other comics. As I got more money, I bought more comics, and they were only 12 cents at that time,
Yeah.
so it was cheap. I mean, it isn't cheap when at that time,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you only got $1 to deal with. And I've collected Marvel comics. In fact, I have from Spider-Man and Fantastic Four and Avengers from 1 to 100.
Okay.
Then when I reached 100, I started going to college, and unfortunately, I didn't have the money to buy the comics, and I didn't have any place to put them. So I basically had stopped buying comics at that time. And fortunately, I put them in a cabinet down in the basement, and my mother didn't throw them away, which she would constantly threaten that she would throw them away. And I said, "No, Mom, I'm gonna read those still gonna read them." Yeah, but you're in college now. You really don't need comics. You know the story.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard it many times.
Yeah.
Then when I about 10, 15 years ago, I had gotten all the comics from my mother's house, got them here, and I said, all right, what am I going to do with these comics now? So I started putting into plastic folders with cardboard in them, and started arranging them, and started taking on a computer, took pictures of them. I have all of the comics covers that I had back then. And then I sort of got interested in buying some of the missing comics that I had. Till about, I guess, most of these Spider-Man were up to 300 at that point, or 400 or something like that. So I picked up some of the missing comics at that time. And then I decided, okay, I didn't understand the new direction that Marvel was taking. So at that time, it was still, Spider-Man was still following his same route. He had now married Mary Jane, yeah. Mary Jane, yeah. Stacy was killed. I mean, I understood all of that, but then it got off into another direction that I kind of got little concerned about. Is like, okay, and then they started explaining as an alternate world. It's like, okay, now you're getting a little far-fetched for me. It's not the old comics that I was used to. So I basically had stopped, and I put them in the box and I put them away. I have probably 7 boxes, and each one of them holds about 100 comics. So I have about 700 comics, 800 comics tucked away.
Yeah.
My son says to me, he says, "Dad, what are you going to do with these?" I said, "Well, I got them in the closet. They're perfectly safe, and your mom doesn't want to throw them away." I said, "I'm glad she's decided to do that. I'm glad." He says, "But aren't they worth something?" I said, "They're only worth something if someone is willing to buy them."
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, they're worth nothing to anyone. And they're not worth anything to me, except that they're sitting in a closet now, all wrapped up, and I'm afraid to take them out because I'm going to leave them for my son to kind of figure out what he's going to do.
Yeah.
He says, another thing I got to sell in a yard sale. I said, don't you dare.
um, do you, since the MCU started, do you watch the MCU movies and some of like the Sony Marvel movies as well? Do you watch those?
Oh yeah, I've watched all of them on on which call I have Disney Plus.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I had to watch Disney Plus. Come on.
Well, what are your impressions of the MCU and like the uh people talk about the comic accuracy of the MCU and some of the storylines and everything. How do you think they are doing with kind of some of the stories, and then also, bringing in more stories for an expanded universe and everything? But what are your impressions of the MCU?
I like the movies. I do, and I've watched all the movies, and I've seen them all. Um, I understand the storyline that the movies are doing, but I don't know where the storyline connects because I'm missing those years. I'm not
Mhm.
sure where it connects with the comics.
Okay.
I'm sure Marvel has connected them somewhere, but I'm watching them just basically as its own separate unit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I enjoy it. The only thing that I find frustrating is they have a whole bunch of new characters that I have no clue what they were, who they were, where they came from. They weren't. I do know all the characters that were there back in the what you call the 60s, 70s, and
Mhm.
80s. But after that, it's like, okay, they've lost me.
Okay. Um, is there a character or characters that you most closely identify with from
I wish
Marvel?
I was Spider-Man.
Okay. All
I
right.
had identify with him because that was the first comic that I bought. And I followed him for many years after that. And I sort of got pulled in to what he was doing, how he was going through high school, he was going off to college. Um, he's a photographer too, so it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I don't know if he ever went to Disney. Oh yes, he did actually. I do have a comic where he was at Disney.
Okay.
It,
Okay.
it was it was a what you call it a dental comic or something like that.
Okay.
One of those that they give away at one of the stores or
Yeah.
dentist stores. But I more or less what you call it. I liked it. I
Okay.
liked it. What you call it. Um, I like the fact that he was a loner. I'm
Yeah.
kind of a loner, even though the boss says I'm not. She says I'm an expert. Well, you know what I mean. Um,
Um, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I'm finished. I've run out of words.
So I like to end with a few rapid questions, and these mostly deal with the parks, um, and or I'll deal with the parks, and you can explain your answer if you want. You don't have to give any explanation if you don't want. It's up to you. So there's about 4 or 5 of them. So first, do you have a favorite Disney park or gate?
Yes, Magic Kingdom.
Magic Kingdom. Okay.
Now the Magic Kingdom, because it's the first park we go to when we're down there, and I love sitting on the veranda. Though they didn't have 2 rocking chairs, they only had 1 rocking chair last time we were there.
Okay.
But typically they have 4 rocking chairs, 4 or 6 rocking chairs, and we sit there and just watch people coming in. We enjoy watching people coming in.
Yeah. Okay. At any of the parks, do you have a favorite attraction that is a ride?
Yeah, Haunted Mansion.
Okay. All right.
And because there's I didn't even start on my Haunted Mansion, but there is so much.
Yeah.
In fact, it took 3 chapters to write about Haunted Mansion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's just so much in there, and the backstories that the cast members have is not the backstory that the Imagineers wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And it constantly changes around constantly. It's about the ring that's in the that's in the graveyard, the front graveyard, not the back graveyard, but the front graveyard or the one inside. The ring that's there, it wasn't there originally, but it was put in when they did that graveyard. And a lot of other things explaining as to, okay, who the owner was. I mean, I put in one of my chapters, then it's not real, but the family tree of the what you call it, of the host
Gracie. Oh,
Gracie,
okay.
right? Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that yet, but it is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, I have the link to where it goes to.
Okay. All right. Favorite attraction that's a show?
Um, I like what you call it, the Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
Now, it's strange for me to like Beauty and the Beast, but I think it's the best representation of the original
Okay.
that they've done on stage.
Okay.
The singing is great. The choreography is great. Now that's not the first one that I loved. The first one I loved was actually The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Which was in the old theater at the back of the parking, back of the Hollywood Studios.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's gone. So is that gone?
Yeah. That's actually, I was going to ask a favorite extinct attraction. So we'll start with a favorite extinct attraction that's a ride.
Well, there's lots of them. You're asking the wrong person because there's a lot of them. Favorite extinct attraction. I would say that it's probably Horizon.
Okay.
Which was it? I got to write about that, and it's just I'm gonna have to write about that one. It's just it was an amazing ride.
Yeah.
That you went through, and so much I still remember about that. But I watched a video just recently where some guys snuck in Horizon and did the back scene as the Horizon.
Okay. Yeah.
It took a lot away because I didn't see the back lot of the or backstage on Horizon.
Yeah.
Though they were caught.
Yeah. And then the extinct attraction that's a show is that Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was just
excuse me.
That was just fabulous. That was just the beginning where the jugglers started off, and prepping the crowd and getting them warmed up, and then when they started, I mean, it was just the music, and it was just excellent.
Yeah,
my wife and I loved that show.
I think, and the last one is, if there was one thing, and it could be your extinct attraction as a ride or a show, or it could be something else. If there was one thing that Disney said Joe will bring back, what would you want them to bring back?
Actually, the what you call it, God, I forget the name of it. It was in The Wonders of Life.
Okay.
Cranium
yeah, cranium control.
that my wife loved that ride. I mean,
Yeah.
that it wasn't a ride; it was a show actually.
Yeah.
But it was just my
Cranium
son
Command,
at the time was
sorry.
about the same age as the kid that was in the show.
Yeah.
And I keep looking at him and saying, is that you?
Yeah.
Is that you?
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing this. This was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to read through WDW Mousing and to see all of the research you have done behind it and the pictorial tour that you're giving it. So for people who want to look up WDW Mousing or want to contact you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, on the each chapter has at the bottom a spot where they can put some questions in there.
Okay.
Also, as to where they can find me on Facebook or or email me.
Okay. All right. And Joe, thank you so much for this. This
Terry,
was
thank you.
a lot of fun. So thank you. Have a great
Thank
rest
you
of your
very
day.
much. And
Thank you.
and we'll see you. Take care.
Bye.